Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inclusion Collective. Today, we have with us a very special guest, Dr. Giselle Lobo. Dr. Giselle Lobo has worked as a special educator. She has trained and developed several batches of special educators in Goa. She is widely respected as an expert on autism and inclusive education. And most importantly, she is the pioneer of life skills resource rooms in Goa. For me, she is the most phenomenal teacher that I have ever had. Over the years, she has played an important role in strengthening and the support systems for the inclusion of children with disabilities in Goa through parent advocacy, through collaboration with educational institutions and government bodies. Dr. Giselle is currently based in the United States, and we are delighted to connect with her today online. Ma'am, welcome to the Inclusion Collective. It's
Thank you,
wonderful to have you
Purva.
here today.
It's so nice to be talking with you again. I mean, technology is wonderful.
Very true, ma'am. Ma'am, you have been away from Goa for about 5 years now. So,
Yeah.
where are you currently based and what are you currently doing?
Okay. So, right now, I am a teaching assistant in a school for children with autism. And I have just completed my BCBA, which is Board Certified Behavior Analyst uh, degree slash certification in a nutshell.
Wonderful. And what are you doing right now as work as an assistant teacher? What is the kind of work that you're doing?
Okay. So it's for me, it's like I am getting a chance to work with the same population of students that I did with in my resource room. These are children with autism, okay, who most of them also have intellectual disability. They are minimally verbal. Uh, Most of them communicate either through what we call assistive devices, augmentative communication, their iPads, and I am getting a chance to really work one on one with a student and help them through their program, which consists a large part of communication, some basic academics, and a lot of self care skills. And thanks to my background in special education, and of course, all the experience that I had in working with my students in Goa, a lot of the innovations and adaptations that I suggest come very easily because of that experience. That's the first thing. And secondly, uh, I have always been a big like a I have always supported applied behavior analysis. When I was in Goa, it was called behavior modification, and I think as my student you definitely attended my workshop on that. It is one of the most important strategies to teach children in a systematic, structured manner. So this school is a school which is what we call an ABA school. The foundation is applied behavior analysis. And I get a lot of opportunity to use the same strategies, but I have learned so much more because behavior analysis has come a long way from behavior modification. And for me, it has been an eye opening experience to build on that knowledge and understand the techniques in a much, much more nuanced manner and use them accordingly.
That's wonderful to hear, ma'am. And it's very meaningful work that you are doing. You have been continuing to do, and you are continuing to impact the families and educators who are probably internationally now. So your journey has continued to evolve even after you left Goa. So, ma'am, could you take us back in time a little bit and tell us about your roots in Goa?
Okay.
Uh,
So, yeah,
yes.
that's in 2001 is when I came to Goa. Let me just give you a little background. So, I grew up in Bombay. I did my B.Ed in special education from SNDT University. And I worked for 3 years in a special school in a suburb of Bombay in Chembur. And then I got an opportunity, I got a scholarship. It was a Rotary scholarship to do my master's in the US. And while I was there, I was exposed to this incredible system of inclusive education. And over there, I saw in a regular school children with severe cognitive disabilities being included in the general education classroom, right from standard 1 to standard 8. But what impacted me the most was these are children coming in with wheelchairs. These are children coming in with crutches. And who's running out to get them from the buses and helping into the school? Other students. I was just blown away by that. I'm like, these are students helping these students with severe disabilities. And they were trained by the teachers to push the wheelchairs, to unbuckle the straps, to help to position the students in chairs. And I was like, I have to take this back to India. That was my first absolute exposure to what inclusive education was all about. And the second example that I saw, which again, as I said, just inspired me so much, was in the 8th grade, the teacher of that classroom put up a play. Now, this is a play from one of the most famous playwrights in American literature. And so, the typical children, it's all about speaking. But they had one student with cerebral palsy who was in a standing frame. He was nonverbal. And the teacher found a way to include him in the class, in the play. And how was that? Because one scene in the play had a restaurant scene. And so he was in a standing frame which had a tray on which he would do all his work. And she made him a waiter for that scene. So all he had to do was they put a tray on his work tray. They had a few glasses and plates, and another student pushed him in slowly. He was taken to the table and he took the bottles because he was perfectly able to move his hands. He took the bottles, put them on the things, moved to the next table. That's all he had to do. He didn't have to speak. He's a waiter. But can you imagine the impact and the creativity of that teacher to include a child like this? And when I saw these two examples, the students and this teacher, that's when I said, any child can be part of a general school system. Any child. The creativity has to come from us. We have to change the system. We have to adapt. And keeping that in mind, I decided I would come back to India, and this is what I wanted to do. Till that time, I always had the dream to set up the model special education school. So like a segregated school. But when I saw this, I said, no, I have to do something different. This is the system I want to bring. So now this was in 1993 that I did my master's. In the meantime, I got married. That was unplanned. And I spoke to my husband. I said, listen, I have to go back to India. So he said, okay, let's plan. In 2001, I came back to Goa and I started visiting schools to ask them. And I said, all I want from you is an empty classroom. That's all I want. I said, I will train, I will provide the teachers, I will provide the equipment. I just need an empty classroom. For what? I said, to include children. And I gave a description of the children. And every single school, the principals, some of them laughed. Some of them said, oh, you don't understand. These children can't be in our school. There are these special schools for them. Have you not visited these special schools? And I laughed and I said, listen, I taught in a special school for 3 years in my life. I know what a special school is. And they're like, well, these children have to be there. They can't be over here. So of course, I was like, thank you very much. Went to another school. And I think as my student, you must have heard this story, but when I came to Holy Cross High School in Bastora, the principal at that time was Sister Pushpika. And when I put this idea to her, she said, "You know what? I saw a movie about this once, and I always dreamed of having this in my school. So if you're going to do all the work, I'm happy to let you this thing." For her, it was such a small gesture. But I always tell people that if she hadn't said yes, I would have gone back to the States because I wouldn't know what to do. I could do everything, but I could not get a classroom in a school because that was not in my power. And so I always say when people take a small step, they have no idea how big the impact will be. And so, Sister Pushpika, she, I think she has to be, I know the parents of the first school will always thank her and remember her. And for me, she is that pioneer who had the vision to understand that every child deserves to be included in a regular school. So once she gave me the green signal, that's when I started to set up what was later going to be called the Life Skills Resource Room.
It's such a lovely glimpse into your the early years that you spent in Goa. And I think people in Goa will really connect with this. The people who have been associated with Holy Cross Bastora, with Sister Pushpika, and also those people who have been is somewhere connected with you because maybe the parents of those children or maybe the classmates of those children. I'm sure they will always remember the work that you have done.
Oh, I just wanted to say, yeah, I hope you give me a chance to talk about the parents and the classmates, maybe further on in the interview. But I also want to give a shout out to the first 7 parents who put their faith in me. I remember they had never seen anything like this in their lives before. And when, again, so first is a school, but you also need students. And for parents to give up the security of what they knew then, which was a special school, because everybody who had a child with special needs, who had intellectual disability, was going to a special school. And why should they trust this stranger who's come from another country, who didn't even grow up in Goa, though I am a Goan by birth, but never grew up in Goa? And this person comes and says, "You know what, I want to start this thing." I could have just left within a year and they would be nowhere. But they put their faith in me. And so, those first 8 parents, I'm also grateful to them for entrusting their children for this incredible journey that we then took together.
That's really wonderful, ma'am. And it's very important that parents participate because without the parents' support, without the parents' contribution and collaboration, it's very difficult to do the work that we are doing.
I agree.
Ma'am, yes. How did you get interested? You have already told me about the special education, how you got interested. You did your special education in Mumbai and then you went to the US. So,
Yeah.
when you went to the US with that education, what was the work that you did over there?
So there, I specifically I did what is called a master's in education, because they don't have a master's in special education. It's a master's in education, but you can take all courses which pertain to special education. So then, and I opted for the severe disabilities modules, because in that time in India, when we did our training, there was training for intellectual disability, but it was mainly moderate. There was training for physical disability. So I did train a lot to work with children with cerebral palsy, but I never trained to work with children with severe disabilities. And that time, severe disabilities in the US also included autism. And in 1993, autism was such an unknown quantity, such an unknown population, that I opted for that. So all my practicum had to do with autism. So I learned so much in terms of the number one thing that I learned, and I can never forget, was that you have to teach students skills which will enable them to be independent. And what is the definition of independent? It is, if if they can't do it themselves, somebody will have to do it for them. And so if I can't dress myself, somebody has to dress me, right? That is what independence, that's a functional skill. And the emphasis for children with severe disabilities on functional skills is so crucial. If it's if your child cannot toilet themselves, if they can't dress themselves, when you're small, it's very easy to do that. But if you think of a 25-year-old, a 35-year-old who can't toilet themselves, very few people then want that job, right? Of toileting a 35-year-old, a 45-year-old. It's so easy to do it when your child is small. It's not easy when your child is an adult. It's not easy to dress an adult. It's not easy to feed an adult. And so I learned the importance of teaching those skills very early on in life. The second thing that they emphasized was communication, something we overlook so much. And this has been brought home to me all the more strongly in my current field of work. And later on, I'll give you some examples. But communication is key. If we can't give our students the means to communicate with us, we've actually failed as educators. We've failed as educators because the right of everybody to have their voice heard, to communicate and say, I want, is a fundamental right. So, practical skills and communication, these were the two things that I learned in my program, in my master's over there. And that's something that I brought back to India when I came. uh, in my resource room, I remember my children had communication books, there were communication boards, and all these kinds of things. But so in the US, that was the main. I specialized in severe disabilities. I did all my practicum in schools for children with autism, and I learned the importance of functional skills and communication.
That seems like a very transformative kind of an experience, and it is definitely inspiring for all of us. And ma'am, it keeps on coming back to me as you have been so much ahead of the times, yeah, especially since you brought your knowledge from there to Goa, and at a time when there was not so much information about what is special education, what is a disability. There were so many myths around disability, but you came over here and you set up, first of all, thanks to Sister Pushpika for helping you and supporting you, but even willingness to entertain this idea that it is possible to do something different with these children. So ma'am, for the viewers who don't know what a life skills resource room is, can you clarify the concept of what exactly of a life skills resource room is?
Sure. So the life skills resource room, as we explain it in our scheme for financial needs in Goa, which is part of now Goa
Scheme
state
for children with
policy.
special needs. Yes.
Children with special needs, correct, correct.
Yes.
So it is a classroom in a regular school for children with intellectual disability, but moderate to severe, who will probably not access an academic curriculum. And the reason I say probably not access it is to give those students a chance to still be in a regular school and to show how they can participate in all aspects of learning, because academics is not the only learning that happens in a school. So, in the life skills resource room, when I set it up, there was a curriculum, but it was a completely functional curriculum. The curriculum had two objectives. One was to teach our students communication and self help skills to enable them to be independent in adulthood. The second was to give them those skills which would enable them to participate in co curricular activities in the regular school. So, communication, self help was for themselves, those were two areas. And then we had fine motor, which was an introduction to various arts and craft skills, gross motor, which was all your PE, physical education, yoga, sports, uh, that functional reading, functional writing, functional math, okay, and finally social skills, which allowed them to again participate in group activities in the regular school. So that was the basis of the curriculum. They learned all these, they had skills, they had an individualized education program based on this functional curriculum, and the IEP, individualized education program, consisted of one skill from each of these areas. So at any given point in a term, the students were learning 7 skills in all the from one from each of these different areas. They would be taught these skills in a one-on-one situation, and they would be assessed monthly, and progress was charted. That was part one of the life skills. So teaching within the classroom. So, as I said, the curriculum was had 7 sections. Uh, some of them, two of them, communication and self help, were with the aim of developing independence in the student as an adult. And the other sections, math, basic functional math, functional reading, functional writing, fine motor, gross motor, art and crafts, and sports and physical education, and social skills. These were with the aim of helping them develop skills so that they could be part of the general school system for the co curricular activities. And they were each, there was a skill from each of these areas which formed the IEP. So every term, 7 skills were being taught to the students, one from each area. Now they were taught these skills in the resource room, but then obviously they had to practice these skills in the regular school, and no better place to practice these skills, especially communication, socialization, art and craft, with your peers and with the teachers. And I remember telling so many of the friends and the teachers, this child is learning how to greet. So please make it a point to say hello to the child, ask them how they are, wait for them to give their response. This child is learning how to paint. So, can we have an art activity which involves painting? And so, this is how we were able to get our students included into the school, into the co curricular activities of the students. Uh, and so, that was the curriculum.
So, ma'am, now that we have seen that you had the curriculum in place, you developed the IPs in such a way that inclusion was inbuilt into the
Yes,
learning of the children, and you developed the collaboration from the teachers and from the peer in the class in such a way that it all came together and made a smooth experience for all of the stakeholders in the classroom, the teachers,
yes,
for the children in the classroom, and the children who are being included from the life skills resource room. So all this, the system that has been developed was found very fascinating by we had the entire team of not entire team but a large number of members from the NIPID and Disha team when they came over here to Goa to train the teachers on the use of this NIPID Disha curriculum for children with intellectual disabilities. They had expected that they will be training teachers from special schools. But when we said that we want teachers from our inclusive schools who are special teachers also to get the training, they were not really aware of what exactly we are doing. So when I introduced to them the concept of academic and life skills resource rooms that we have, and what kind of work is actually happening in the life skills resource rooms, they requested that they wanted to visit some of the schools. And during the visits, they found it quite fascinating. So we first initially we went to two schools. Then in the next visit, they said some more. They requested for some more. So we went for two more schools, and then they made a separate visit where they only wanted to visit our schools. Not they didn't come with the purpose of training for that visit. So that was something very I found it very encouraging, because I realized that they have now seen the value in it. So
Yes.
if people who are working with Jaivakil Foundation and working with Nipit Disha have seen the value of what we are doing, and they have probably seen in other schools where inclusion is happening, but inclusive education is not really happening in the way you have designed it over here.
Yeah.
So I'm sure when they see this part of the interview, I think they will definitely be very interested in getting in touch with you, probably to try to see how this can be replicated in other schools as well.
Right.
Now, apart from this, ma'am, first of all, the clarification that you gave about the life skills resource rooms is very important, because not just people who know what is a intellectual disability will understand what is the importance of it and the need of it, but also when we need to bring this into policies or bring this into part of the curriculum or part of the educational system, more and more people need to understand the importance of it. The more and more people need to understand the value of it, that it is not just valuable for the children whom we are talking about who need to be included, but for all of us. So what is that benefit? What is the benefit that all of us as a society gain by inclusion?
Wow, that is actually so easy to answer because I remember being inspired by this quote from Plato, which says that the true value of a society is how well it takes care of its weakest citizens. When we say weakest, I don't mean weakest in terms of ability or weak in terms of physical strength. It is those citizens who don't have a voice because the system has been set up to only cater to certain kinds of people. I always used to start my talks on inclusive education by saying our world is designed for people with uh, our world is designed for non-disabled people. It's not designed for disabled people. It's not designed for people with disabilities. Uh, we don't have braille everywhere so that people who are blind can read. We don't have people talking in sign language, or we don't have clear signage so that people who are deaf can participate. Our roads are not, what should I say, easy for people with wheelchairs to navigate. So, this is not a world designed for people with disabilities. It is a world designed for people without disabilities. And inclusive education, and those are the physical boundaries. The social boundaries are even more, because automatically in our minds we are checking off reasons why people can't be part of our society, and inclusive education is the number one way to break it down. And I would really like to share a story, one of the many stories that I encountered when I was training the 8th and ninth standard students to come to the resource room and be buddies with our students. So, as part of the life skills resource room, sensitization programs were run throughout the year for teachers, for regular parents, and for the students. Okay, that is a very, so if you have a life skills resource room, you are not going to be a classroom in solitude. A part of the life skills is sensitization, and all my teachers who were trained by me, they will remember how they had to go into the regular classrooms and sensitize the students, how they had to conduct sensitization for the teachers at staff meetings. And then for the PTA meetings, for the regular parents, they had to conduct sensitization. So when I was doing a sensitization for the ninth standard students, okay, I spoke to them about how important it is that you believe that every child can learn. And you may look at these, your friends in the life skills resource room, and say they can't learn because they are 11 years old and they are still doing ABC, or they are 11 years old and they are still learning how to dress themselves. But the key is learning, and every child can learn. And so we are in a school and everybody's learning at different levels. Can you run the 100 meters race in 9 seconds? You cannot. You are learning to run faster. And so I said part of the learning is also learning how to address these students correctly. And I did a lot of things. And then we had an interaction where they did an art activity, a story was read, they participated, and so the whole thing. And after that, one of the students came to me and they said, "Ma'am, after after attending this session, when I go back to my village, there is a man over there, and we all tease him, we make fun of him, we say pisaw and call him names. Not only am I not going to do that, but I will make sure that my friends never do that again." So, this is what education does. It sensitizes people, it helps us to treat people with dignity, with respect. That is building a better society. That's just one example. I have had parents who've come back to me and said that when they told their children, don't mix with children in the resource room, their children went ahead. They said, no, we are going to do it. And now we have learned differently. So, inclusive education just makes society better for everyone.
Ma'am, that's a wonderful example which you gave. It is really mind-boggling, first of all, and at the same time, it feels very natural for a child to learn that and take it in. And I
Yes,
wonder why is it so difficult for us adults to accept it. So, ma'am,
exactly.
in this life skills resource room setup that you did, you must have had some certain objectives that this is what I want to achieve. Are
Yes.
there any challenges which you faced, and is there any thing that you feel that you did not achieve, or is there anything you would like now to achieve better?
So I want to actually, I don't want people to get the impression that this was all smooth sailing, because
No,
for
not at
people
all.
who want to do this, I want to I want to share one of the many obstacles, but also to tell them the value of persevering. So when before I opened the classroom, uh, I, I told Sister Pushpika, I said, Sister, I have to address your teachers. I have to make them understand. Please throw your mind back to 2003 and think what it was like in those days. Nobody had heard of autism in the regular schools I'm talking about. No inclusive education, it was unknown. Sister Pushpika would have said, yes, yes, come. The teachers had no idea that what it was all going to be. So I said, I would like to speak to your teachers. So she says, okay, school gets over at 1 o'clock. You have half an hour to speak to the teachers because they will leave at 1:30 sharp. And I'm thinking, half an hour? I had a 1.5 hour talk prepared. But okay, half an hour. Now I start to give the talk. I'm sitting in a small room, okay? It's not even a classroom size. All the teachers are sitting close together. I thought 1 to 1:30, I'm getting a full half hour. By the time the teachers came in, it was 1:10. They come in, they are talking. They've never seen me before. Sister Pushpika is waiting over there. At 1:10, she says, okay, this is Mrs. Giselle Lobo. She's going to give you a talk. Can you imagine? Think of teachers who want to leave, and if Giselle Lobo was not there, they would have left at 1:15. Now they have to sit and listen. Who is this person? So I start giving them the talk. Now, This is the first time I have addressed teachers in Goa. I had used to address teachers in Bombay, but in Goa. And nobody's making eye contact with me. People are not asking questions. And at 1:25, they all got up. I was in mid sentence, picked up their bags, and left. I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, I've not even started to tell them what is inclusive education. How are they going to do it? What it was like a slap in my face. It was insulting. It was a shock. I was in shock. That's the only thing I can say. I was in total shock. I remember, and I was alone in Goa in the sense my husband hadn't come down as yet. I had no friends or anybody at that time. Calling him long distance, saying, I don't know what to do. This is what happened. I mean, I'm coming back in 3 months to open the classroom, and nobody knows what's expected of them. But here's where I say, right? If you say you're going to do something, you just have to go ahead and do it. You just have to go ahead and do it. You're, this is not the time for ego. This is not the time to say, you know what? It's not the time for ego. That's all I'm saying, because I was in so much shock. So I went ahead, I did it. Sister Pushpika, God bless her, she introduced me and she left. So even she was not there to give me moral support at the end of the thing. When people leave at 1:25, PowerPoint slide is up over there. Okay. I'm left with 20 slides to present still. They've gone. I don't know what to do. Anyway. So but the lesson is, don't give up. You will have many, many such obstacles. You have to find a way to work through if you believe. If you believe. So many years later, I remember when I used to go and chat with these teachers who by that, if I had the time, I would tell you the growth of these teachers. But this is what the teachers told me. They said, you know what? Once you open the classroom, we all would take bets in the staff room as to how long you were going to last. Some people said she'll leave in 6 months. Some people said, no, no, she'll leave at the end of the year. And we were taking bets as to how long you would stay. That's the level of confidence that they had. And they thought that I would, because they said the way it was, it was so tough with the students, right? I mean, students running out of the classroom, these are students with autism. And but you have to persevere. If you believe, you have a clear vision, you have to persevere. You have to overlook the fact that people are not going to jump in to help you. You have to overlook the fact that nobody's laying out a red carpet for you. You have to believe that what you are doing is the right thing. So that was just one of the obstacles that I had, you know. And but yeah, when you persevere, it's all worth it, because those same teachers after 2 years would take so much pride in the fact that, oh, this student can come into my class and he listens to me, and this student comes into my class and will sit quietly, you know. So it's worth it. It's worth it. But to get back to your question, what are some of the things that are left? Well, if I could do more, I would like there to be, I would like it to be easier for principals who want to start this to start it. I would like it to be easier. Till today, even though everything is there in black and white in the policy, the principals have to fight so much to open up a life skills resource room. They have to fight so much to get a teacher for the life skills resource room. Government officials today are not sensitive to the fact that students with severe disabilities, which means autism, intellectual disability, or autism and say ADHD, or intellectual disability and something, and they're not sensitive to the fact that you cannot have one teacher for 10 students. That is an impossible thing when you are dealing with teaching them self help skills, communication skills, functional reading on a one is to one basis. We cannot teach our students as a block. Each student has a different self help skill, each student has a different communication skill, a handwriting skill. So it's very hard. And if I was back in India, I would love to advocate more for principals at the Department of Education, make it easy, encourage principals to open these schools so that students don't have to travel long distances to special schools. The dream would be that each school, regular school, has a resource room for just 10 students so that every student from the taluka is serviced by a general school. That would be the dream.
Ma'am, I can only see how much persistence and perseverance you had to overcome all the challenges and all alone without having the kind of support that is needed. Today, I can say we are so many. We are approximately, I think, about 100 special teachers in around 80 schools, I think, where we are part of academic or life skills resource rooms. And it has we only have each other for support if required, but I can only imagine the kind of thoughts that might have come in your mind, the amount of challenging situations that you might have come across, and yet you did not give up. Your persistence laid the groundwork for us to work today, and you have created the systems which were not there before. So definitely for us, you were way ahead of your time, and you have created the systems that we are able to follow today. We don't necessarily have to do anything new, because you had already I think thought into it, and try to already maybe project into seeing what kind of requirements will be there, needs will be there, the challenges that the parents might have faced and the teachers might have faced, and taken care of all of it while designing your system. So, ma'am, thank you very much for that. So, ma'am, you already spoke about the difficulties that the principals or the headmasters of the school were struggling, because even though they wanted to start the life skills resource rooms, they were not able to, because their need was not understood, and they were not for starting the children the life skills resource room for lower number of children was something that was not permitted, and the kind of difficulties that the children had was also not understood, and what kind of support they require was also not understood. So I can see the kind of challenges that you had, and now we are looking at how we can relate that to the current situation and see how more and more parents can get the support. So back then, ma'am, you had your difficulties in 2005, when the first time the children with special needs scheme came out. It covered more of the academic skills kind of children, but they still did not support the children with life skills resource rooms. So in 2008, when the circular came, what was the kind of what was the expectation you had, and what actually came out in the circular?
So the big challenge is for government officials to understand why these children should be in a regular school. The mentality is that these children should be in a special school. And no matter how much I would explain to them that it is the same kind of children, but they are in a regular school to be included and be part of society, the number one question that was always asked is, but will they pass an exam? And when I would say, no, they won't, they would say, then they should be in a special school. And then I would say, no, they shouldn't, because they deserve to be part of a regular school so that they can be part of the community. And then again, it would be, but if they're not going to pass an exam, why should they? So I think that that is something that most government officials still don't understand till today, that if for them school is exams, which is why the academics resource rooms took off, because it was guaranteeing more children passing the exams. They The government officials feel that if we have special schools, they take care of this population of children. Why do they need to be in a different school? This concept that there are many ways to educate many children is still not yet understood by most government officials. And in this respect, I would like to really salute uh, our ex Chief Minister, Mr. Parikar, Manohar Parikar, because he was a big support in making sure that these life skills resource rooms would get recognition. Uh, the the parents of these resource rooms worked tirelessly to ensure that their teachers would get support, but it was under him that the life skills resource room came into government policy in 2012. It was introduced in that policy, which was rewritten. And I gave, that was when different people, the principals of special schools, as well as Dr. Nandita, Dr. Marita, Madhura, myself, all of us jointly came with government officials to rewrite this whole scheme to include the model of the life skills resource room. And in this context, again, I would like to tell people that in most states, the division between inclusive education and and I know I'm going to say special education, but it's segregated education, if you will. But inclusive education, there's always a fight between these two camps. When I came in 2003, I made up my mind that I would never ever present myself as opposite to special schools. I truly believe that if we are working for the same population of children, we are on the same side.
Absolutely.
And I went out of my way to maintain good relations with principals of all these schools, so much so that they would call me to the schools to give talks on strategies for dealing with children. But more importantly, when I started the B.Ed in special education, all these principals opened their doors to Nirmala students for practical lessons. And it's very easy, again, to let ego get in the way and think that you know everything and what you're doing is the best. But my view was always that we're all working for the same population of children. We are on the same side. And therefore, this scheme was able to come together because both groups, special school principals as well as those in inclusive education, collaborated. And I think Goa is one of the few places where you can genuinely say there is collaboration between both the sides, which is what helped the scheme take root. But it was only 6 years later in 2018 that it was finally signed and made a gazetted document. But again, the work of so many people, um, uh, Mr. Guru Prasad was one of them. I remember,
Yes.
I'm talking from the government now,
Yes.
but I remember people just going, why isn't the scheme getting put? Why isn't the scheme? We would take it in turns to visit the government departments. But I always say that again, collaboration is key. We don't do anything by ourselves. So I was very fortunate to be in a very, very collaborative, supportive environment where people on both sides genuinely worked together.
Wow, that was such a wonderful explanation of what happened back then. And I was not 100% part of it, but as a student and as a new teacher, I could get bits and pieces of all the efforts that you were taking through Madhura and through Ma'am Marita as well, and Dr. Nandita as well. But all this work that came finally, we understand that policies implementation and the actual writing of the policy is never easy. It takes a lot of work back and forth, seeing where the gap is, trying to bring it, in close in the gaps, and it takes a lot of advocacy and
Yes.
perseverance. And you have done much more than what you could have done. You have tried over and beyond your capacity, and that is what helps us today. So we are at a place where national education policy has been implemented, and I would like to share a little bit from this, because as you were talking about it, I realized that when we are talking about children and having to bring them in together, what is the challenge? Why are they still struggling to understand? So NEP has taken a little bit of care that the next generation probably will not struggle, because they have this ideology of formative and summative evaluation, where summative is going to be competency based and formative is going to be in a different way, where they will be measuring the awareness, sensitivity, and creativity of the children. So, in these areas, if we look at awareness, we can think of it as knowledge. Sensitivity and creativity is something that you have been talking uh, through this entire interview. So, if the children are sensitive, and if we have creativity to bring in inclusive education, that is what NEP is 100% talking about. So, ma'am, that was a wonderful back into time for us, and back in. I wanted to ask how your association with Nirmala Institute started, because of, I mean, through your work, and how did you start the course for special education?
Okay. So again, I just want to reiterate. I know you're saying, "Ma'am, you did," but I just want to reiterate that the it is always a collaborative effort, always a collaborative effort. So right from the time, Sister Pushpika by opening the doors, then the parents by joining, and then what should I say, raising funds after a few years. uh, Principals, other principals. I would really like to recognize people like Selena from Chubby Cheeks, Sister Lily from Lutz Convent, Sister Julie from Holy Cross Holy Cross Shioli, and the principal from Holy Cross, not Holy Cross, I'm so sorry, SFX Shioli. All these people, it meant they really had to work to get the resource room, life skills resource rooms accepted and recognized in their school. So I really, as I said, it's always, it's the collaboration that is so, so important. Very grateful to people like them who helped take this movement forward. And so now, Nirmala, uh, when the first time Nirmala had, they were asked to give a session to all the government officials, Department of Education, on special education. So Sister Rita had she knew about my work in the life skills resource room, and she asked me if I would give this talk. And she also said that Dr. Gargi was there in Goa, and she said, would you all collaborate and give this talk together? So I said, yeah, sure. So we gave a talk. It was a 2-day workshop, in fact, for all these government officials. And then after that talk, she asked me, so what are you doing, and what's your long-term plan over here? And I said, you know, by that time we had 3 resource rooms, uh, Holy Cross Bastora, Chubby Cheeks, and Lutz Convent. And so she said, so what's your plan? I said, well, I just want to, open as many life skills resource rooms as possible. And she said, where are you going to get these teachers from? So I said, I'll be training them just like I train these teachers. And she said, how many can you train at a time? So, she's making me think of all these questions. So she said, why don't we start a B.Ed in special education? And, that's how you'll get a lot of teachers. So I said, sister, that's like a dream. That's amazing. I'm happy to collaborate with you. And this is what I'm saying, right? This is another example of somebody who takes a leap to make society or to make a difference in the world. And so she started putting in all the paperwork, everything that had to be done to set up this course. And then Dr. Gargi and myself, we were the two, what is it called, co-lecturers, and we started the Nirmala batch. And that's how it started. Again, the aim was very clear. We we wanted to train teachers with a emphasis on inclusive education while giving them all the foundational skills to be good special educators. And that's how Nirmala started. And again, as I said, thanks to Dr. Rita Pace, this course started the first of its kind in Goa and went on for many years.
Yes. And even though the course was about mental retardation, MR, back then,
Yeah.
but you managed to inculcate as much as possible on learning disabilities as well as autism, intellectual disabilities, everything together in such a way that when we go back to when we join our school or start working, we are in a much better position. We're not just saying that, oh, I only know intellectual disability or I only know autism. Dr. Marita also, when she joined in, she also, even when I interviewed her in a few days back, she also said the same thing. She said that I had not expected, but this working with Nirmala Institute happened in such a way that she could reach out to many more teachers and many more schools. So that was something very inspiring. And that collaboration between institutes, as you said, with the schools who are supporting the children, as well as the institute that allowed you to start this training program, that all of it together, that collaboration is the one thing that made sure that the children get the support that they require. That is that sustainability in inclusive education. And you have been able to influence the people who were going to be part of this system. So that is something really inspiring. Ma'am, apart from the government bodies that you have been working, you have also worked with Goa Board, Directorate of Education, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan back then, now it is Samagra Shiksha, and SERT as well. So what was the kind of work you did with them, and how did you progress in your message of inclusive education?
So mainly the work that I did them with them were trainings, workshops on inclusive education, workshop. I did my PhD in universal design for learning, which today for me is one of the best ways to actually make learning meaningful for all learners. I do realize that it is a very Western concept, but I do know we can adapt it for the Indian situation. And so a lot of and my PhD was allowed me to think about how it could be adapted for the Indian situation. So my initial trainings were just on uh, what is inclusive education, types of disabilities, how to adapt teaching strategies in the classroom. And my later trainings were on universal design for education. Universal design for learning, UDL.
So, ma'am, when you have been working with all these institutes, all these government bodies, you have also, I remember being part of the meetings when you used to be part of the Goa Board Committee for Children with Special Needs, the BOS for CWSN. And I remember the passion with which you used to teach, with which you used to discuss certain points and try to bring out the changes. And that has helped a lot in designing the systems as they are currently. Ma'am, we have discussed a lot, and I'm just overwhelmed with the amount of work that you have done, as well as all the collaborations you have done, and how the effects of the system that you said are still currently in place. So I want to ask you now, is that, I mean, this is a conversation which leads out into many different topics, and I know that it's getting late for you, but I'm sure, I mean, I would request you, if possible, to discuss a few more times, maybe
Sure.
some more details. But as of today, after all that we have discussed, is there anything else you would like to tell, like share with educators or parents or other young professionals who are entering this field? How can you, is there anything you would like to share with them?
So if I was to talk from to I would have two bits of advice to give to new teachers. That's what I'm going to say. So one is, you must, when you teach, you have to ask yourself, when I'm what I'm teaching the child, is it going to make a difference in their adult life? And now I'm talking specifically to teachers of children with moderate to severe disabilities. One thing that I do know, which is which happened in my time and continues to happen, is we automatically gravitate to just teaching reading and writing non functionally to even this batch of students. I do not see that emphasis on communication. I do not see the emphasis on self help skills. So I ask teachers who are dealing with this population of students, emphasize practical, functional self help skills. That is key. And the second thing is collaborate with parents. In all my years, the greatest progress for my students came not from my teaching in the classroom, but the carryover that parents did at home. But that carryover will only come if you, as a teacher, believe that the parent is your partner. I have so many teachers who say they don't listen to anything I say. They don't listen to anything I say. And to which I always say, then you're not saying it in a way they understand. Um, I'm going to give you one more example because as I said, I always believe that parents are the greatest educators for their children. So this is when we a Nirmala batch, okay, and this is the assignment that I had set for them. They were these were teachers who were doing their academic skills uh, practicum in Lutz Convent, and I said you have to design a parent education program where you are going to tell the parents the importance of following this simple homework schedule for their children. So, like, ma'am, we don't know these parents, and how I said, figure it out. How are you going to get these parents to come? You all have been given 35 children. You have to figure out. So, how do you figure out? First is, what's the time you're going to set the meeting for the parents? You can't say, well, I'm in school from 8 to 1, so the parents have to come at that time. Many of these parents are daily wage workers. So find out what's a convenient time for them. Then the second thing is, what language are you going to give the talk in? You can't give it in English. You have to figure out what. So all these things were done, and then the invitations were sent. They reminded their students, don't forget, parents. The talk was held, by the way, at 4:30, so that maximum number of parents could come. And Purva, you will not believe this. I still remember that batch. They were stunned. Out of 35 parents that were invited, 29 parents turned up. 29 parents came. But here's the thing, most parents, being daily wage workers, they were not literate. They could not read. But they sat with their children, and the children explained what was written on the handouts. The talk was given in Konkani and in Marathi. No English was spoken at all. And at the end, the parents all turned around and said, why don't we have more talks like this so that we understand how to help our children? So my thing is that you can't just you can't just tell parents what to do. You have to explain. You have to make them your partners. I have very, very rarely in all the years, maybe I can say maybe two parents, I got no response from them. But two parents out of like so many parents, that means that parents want, they're willing, you know, every parent is not going to give you 100%, but for the parent who gives you 10%, you ask 15%. The parent who gives you 80%, you ask 85%. That's just the way it is. So as I said, two bits of advice to teachers. One is teach functional skills, and second is collaborate with parents.
Ma'am, that was so wholesome and heartwarming. I always love listening to you and I could never stop. So, ma'am, it's very difficult for me to say that let us, I think it's getting very late for you, but I think we should stop for today. And I
Sure.
would really love to go ahead and have more discussions with you. But meanwhile, right now, I would say thank you very much, ma'am. It has been, first of all, eye opening, and I'm sure our viewers will benefit a lot from this. I hope more and more parents and teachers watch this interview and get in touch with us if they have any more questions, if they have any more discussions or any particularly specific requests. I think we are open to listening to and discussing any further. So, ma'am, thank
Yeah.
you very much. Yes, ma'am.
No, I was going to say, in fact, if you get questions, if this interview airs before our next talk and people question, maybe you could bring up those questions, and then
Yes.
we could answer them at the next session that we have.
Definitely, ma'am. I'm going to take your word for it, and I'm going to, make you keep your word. So I think uh, uh, ma'am, thank you, really, thank you very much for taking the time out for today to talk to us, in spite of the time difference and all the internet connectivity issues and all that. And we are very inspired by your journey, by your advocacy, and your contributions to the inclusive education that we currently have in Goa. It has made a lasting impact. And I'm sure this conversation that we're having today is going to be an inspiration for teachers, for parents, for students, and my colleagues as special teachers in Goa. And so that we can continue the work towards inclusive education. Ma'am, thank you very much.
Purva, I want to say thank you to you. You're using technology to spread inclusive education. There can be no better, what should I say, gift for me as a teacher, my thing of spreading inclusive education. So I want to thank you for taking the time to put something this, your objectives in doing this are extremely admirable. So thank you for that.
It means a lot, ma'am, especially coming from you. Ma'am, thank you once again for
My
joining the
pleasure.
Inclusion Collective. We wish you all the very best in your continued efforts. Thank you very
Yeah,
much, and please stay connected with us in the best way
of
possible.
course.
Thank you,
Yes.
ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like, share, and subscribe to the Inclusion Collective for more discussions on inclusive education. Please share your thoughts and suggestions in the comments. Thank you.